Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to review Novocaine. So, this movie, I have to say, like, you most kind of forget that it's an action film at some point. Like, it takes 25 to 30 minutes to get to the action part. And even when we do actually get to the action point, like, it never, like escalates the film. It just kind of still stays at that, like, flat, uh, part of it for like the rest of the whole entire film. But I thought this movie was also just kind of entertaining enough that I started to see like the minutes of this movie also just kind of fly by. And so with that said, like this movie quite easily made me compare it to like the Jason Statham Crank movies, or also even like the Ryan Gosling the Fall Guy movie. And I'll explain that because you're thinking like, wow, like this movie must have like huge budget and a lot of action and this, like, let me go on and explain why I say that. So in the Fall Guy movie, we have like Ryan Gosling's movie, or Ryan Gosling, who needs to go on and find this one guy. And then once he finds this one guy, he finds out that there's so much more going on that he was unaware of. And then he also within the film has to go on and kind of clear his name, and that eventually becomes like, oh, how can he do that by the end of the film? Like it kind of becomes that same kind of thing with um honestly Nathan, who's the main character in this film. So really at first, like the very beginning of this like just kind of feels like a date movie, and then eventually it shows you the action part. And so like I feel like I'm very hesitant about actually heavily teeing up this movie because I'm going to go on and explain bits and pieces about this film, and that will probably feel like spoilers to some people. So let me go on and let me give you the grading of this movie, and let me kind of tell you how I felt about it until we actually get to the teeing up point where I'm going to actually kind of explain this movie to tee it up of what's kind of going on. And so we obviously have our character here who is a character that feels no pain. And eventually once this character gets into the action sequences where there's like traps and torturous things going on, and eventually having him to like fight all these people for this information, like yeah, you can quite understand how like this character could best be benefited in this situation. And so really I would have to go on and say that this movie, like I thought it was an okay to like solid okay film. uh and really again, like people could have a wide variety of different kind of thoughts about this movie also, just because a lot of people can just say it's like, oh, it's one of those kind of just gimmick movies, or it's just an action film that tries to like spin it and do something a little bit different. But then like I would just say at the end of all this, this movie was just entertaining enough. It just was. It's very simple, it's very basic, but it's entertaining enough. And so, with that said, you can go on and watch this movie on an app called Zelifonic, Zelivonic, and be able to get your own opinion yourself for absolutely free. And so, what is to be going on within this film that can help you maybe further make a decision whether or not you want to go on and check this movie out again on that app for absolutely free, or maybe you want to go on and go to a theater because you have nothing better to do. So without further ado, we have Nathan. Nathan is to be working at this bank. Come to find out, the bank ends up getting robbed. Coincidentally, the bank robbers end up taking a hostage, and that one hostage ends up being a girl named Sherry, a girl that Nathan seemingly has been falling for. And so that then has us state that the cops within this film are really bad at their job. And it seems that the only person that is to be able to rescue Sherry from these bank robbers as she is to be held hostage is to only be Nathan, it seems. As goofy as that sounds, but it's true. And so Nathan, who is kind of on this race against time, thinking that at any point these bank robbers could kill Sherry, is desperately going from person to person to try to get this little bit of information that eventually leads him to finding where the bank robbers are to then go on and try and get to Sherry, which the further and further we get in this film, you kind of question whether this whole adventure is really going to be worth it or not. And so by the end of the film, yeah, like there is a lot to just kind of get to the finishing finale, finish line, whatever. But but yeah, like it still is just an entertaining enough film. And at the end of the day, I think it's time to just say I think it's about spoiler time of this movie for me to go on and talk about the whole thing and say that simply because yeah, like it's very basic, it's very thin, it's very like if I've already said all of this, I apologize, um but yeah, that's just kind of how I feel about this film. And so with that, let's get me into spoilers. I'm gonna have to kind of take a second here, just whip out my cast list. So the very beginning of this movie has, of course, our main character Nathan that we come to find is just kind of waking up on his normal day. It seems that Nathan really there is absolutely nothing going on in his life. He basically has no life beyond him being this assistant bank manager and him playing video games and then him possibly getting a girlfriend. So, and I'll explain how we get there. So, Nathan goes on to work at his uh, assistant managing job at this bank, going on and meeting with a guy named Earl, who it seemed had lost a love in his life, and Nathan is looking at uh, Earl's business and saying like, "Well, there's a possibility we might have to foreclose on your business." But then Nathan is like, "You know what? Like, how would I go on and how would I hold these paperwork things for X number of days to where you can kind of get your business back on your feet, and then maybe you're going to be able to have the money to be able to pay uh, the bank off." And Earl looks at Nathan and is like, "You're willing to do that?" And Nathan's like, "Sure, why not?" And so, like, setting up that Nathan, like, that he's a good guy. So Nathan goes on to then just have a normal cup of Joe, uh, a bit of coffee, and Nathan is to also be a guy that seems to consistently be setting his watch every 3 hours, or at some point when some people like tell him, "Oh, okay, hey, yeah, I'll be there in 10 minutes." Nathan sets his watch, but we'll get there later down the road. And I guess there was also like a mechanism to just kind of build suspense. So because there ultimately is none in this movie. So Nathan goes on and he's making a cup of Joe and he bumps into a girl named Sherry. And that then leads Sherry to be talking to Nathan and it's like, well, hey, like, you know what, since I spilled coffee all over you and I burnt your hands, how about I go on and how about like we get like some food together. We get lunch. And Nathan's like, I don't know about that. Then Nathan kind of gives into it because he's looking at this girl. And he's like, you know what? Like, she's good looking. I like her. So Nathan decides to go and have lunch with Sherry. So like Sherry is picking these items and she's looking at Nathan, and Nathan seems to eat seemingly absolutely nothing, and she's just kind of weirded out by that, but she's like, oh, okay, well, like, that's, I guess, just you. So Sherry goes on to like start eating her pie, and then she wants to give Nathan like a piece of the pie because she's like, man, this is the best pie. And Nathan's like, yeah, I don't think I can go on and eat that because Sherry's going to offer Nathan a slice, and he's just like, no, no, no. And Sherry's like, well, why? Like, why aren't you eating anything? Like, I thought like we could have lunch together, and like you're not eating. And so Nathan then goes on to explain that like Nathan has this condition that of course has him not be able to feel any pain, but then it also has him have the fear that he could bite off his tongue if he is to actually just chew food. And so we also come to find out that Nathan, like with his parents, like had really kind of hunkered down and try to figure out a way to make Nathan like last as long as he possibly can, because kind of with his condition, there could be any number of scenarios of which that he could die at a much younger age. So Nathan now going on saying that he has this problem with eating food. Sherry then goes on and still convinces Nathan to eat this pie, and Nathan does go on and do so, and he's like, oh my god, that's pie? Oh my god, this is great. So, after finally going on and having that moment, Nathan, like, decides to take the risk to start to eat other things, like lemons and, and this and that. And then he checks his tongue to see if he bit his tongue off, weirdly enough. So, Nathan and Sherry's relationship is continuing on and is to possibly have another date be a possibility. And then so Nathan is going on and like playing video games with this character named uh, uh, Roscoe, who it seems luckily that this character is to live seemingly locally nearby, and they're just kind of playing online gaming together. So Nathan ends up talking to Roscoe about this whole date, or whether or not that he should do it, and Nathan then is to be convinced about going on this date. So Nathan comes to find out that this date leads to a better understanding of Sherry, finding out that she is this artist, and when he used to look at her art, he's like, wow, okay, this is great. Because it seems that also Nathan is a bit of an artist of himself. And I mean himself literally. Like this guy is to tattoo himself like all over his body because of course he feels no pain. And so he is to go on and have his entire body with this uh just kind of weird medieval times kind of theme. And so but we'll get to that. So Nathan goes on to look at this girl's art and even starts to see that it is getting bought by somebody. So Nate and Sherry like transition this to a bar, and we then end up finding the title of the movie within this movie. And so Nathan, it seems, ends up bumping into a old school friend, and this school friend ends up calling Nathan Novocaine. And with that kind of like almost kind of bully of a kid, kind of treating Nathan like crap. And then as this guy is to walk away, uh, Nathan and Sherry had this talk about like, oh yeah, like that is like one of the guys that I used to uh be at school with, and they used to call me Novocaine, and uh like they used to haze me. And so to go on and like have a really kind of much more fun moment here, when Nathan is to go on and to have um this 3 hour kind of timer on his watch go off, Sherry then asks like why is it that he has this timer. And Nathan's like, well, like I gotta go to the bathroom, or I gotta see if I gotta go to the bathroom, because Nathan can't tell. Nathan can't tell if he needs to take a crap or not, or he needs to pee. So he kind of needs to just kind of time it out to just be like every 3 hours, just to kind of see if he needs to go to the bathroom. So when Nathan goes to the bathroom and makes his way back, Nathan notices that Sherry is with this uh, old classmate bully, and that then leads to Sherry saying like, "Well, hey, like, how about we all just share a drink together?" Come to find out that the drink is to be laced with something, which is like a ghost pepper element to it, and so Nathan ends up consuming this drink quite easily because he doesn't know any better. And then the guy ends up choking, and then the girl Sherry ends up explaining that this is a ghost pepper drink, and the guy ends up, yeah, like he ends up like, and both Nathan and Sherry end up walking away, and Nathan's just like, well, yeah, like I can't believe like we kind of like pulled that on that guy, and then I'm gonna walk away with you on my arms and my shoulder or whatever. And Sherry's like, well, yeah, like, well, are like kind of are you gonna like be leaving with me on your shoulder? So Sherry goes to Nathan's place, and we find out that Nathan has a huge amount of books, because I guess since he's never really had a life, that he is to have all these books, and one of them ends up being about like first aid. And Sherry's just like, okay, this book is kind of unusual, like why you have this. And Nathan is to just kind of be in a fear of almost everything. It seems like he's to have kind of phobias about him being able to like one way or another just be at harm at any moment. So Nathan is to have gone on and researched how to be able to uh, figure out ways to like bandage himself if he is to ever get wounded, even like very obscure wounds and whatever. Like he is to just kind of figure out ways. Like he is easily to be able to like pull a bullet out of his arm because he's read enough um, about first aid that he can do simple things like that. So after going on and like knowing a little bit more backstory about this character, this then leads to have then Sherry find out that Nathan has these tattoos all over his body. And so finding out about these tattoos and basically that Nathan is an artist, like Sherry goes on to then like want to see more of Nathan's body and ask like, well, hey, like since you have this ability, like how much of like maybe a bit of passion like can you really feel like uh and so that then leads to the following day because we don't really see much of anything. And Nathan is all excited. He's looking at Sherry at the bank teller counter, and he is thinking like, all right, like I finally have this like girlfriend in my life, and everything's working out all well. So then we come to find out bizarrely that this movie is a Christmas film, and it definitely wasn't released during Christmas time, which is very weird. So because we have these Santa Clauses that come in to rob the bank. And they end up grabbing this manager to try to get the vault combination. And the guy's like, well, I'm not going to give you the combination. And so uh, one of the bank robbers, who I believe is Simon, he ends up accidentally revealing his identity to the bank rob or the bank manager. So he shoots him. And then they go on and get the assistant manager. And they start beating him up. They start punching him, and of course, like with the assistant manager being Nate or Nathan, he doesn't feel anything. So, like the funny joke about the bank robbers who go on and they beat up Nathan. It's like, man, you can really take a punch, because of course he can. So Nathan is supposed to give them the combination of the safe. And so since they like continue to beat up Nathan and he won't give the information up, then they kind of turn to Sherry, and then Nathan's like, oh, okay, I'll give you the combination. And then they get the combination, they get the money. And so the cops by this point are kind of swarming the bank. And when these guys get the money and they run out there, and of course they grab Sherry along the way, they run out, and the guns that they have are like so like ridiculously, like they have like machine guns or whatever. It like machine guns, kind of like AK-47s, and so like they're blasting all over these cop cars, and that leaves seemingly every cop like completely like incapacitated. And so Nathan runs out of the bank to try and see if he can find a way to like rescue Sherry, or see if like the cops had gotten to these bank robbers or not, or whatever. So Nathan goes outside to then find one of the cops uh having a bullet hole in his leg, and so Nathan like quickly grabs his belt and wraps the belt around this guy's leg. And so, since there's no other cops that are easily available here, we then have Nathan, who rushes into this cop car with this gun and tries high speed pursuit after, of course, the bank robbers. So, this then leads, of course, these bank robbers being in two different cars. And so as Nathan is chasing after these bank robbers with the sirens kind of going off, the bank robbers then notice this, and then they are kind of blasting away at Nathan's car. So eventually, what happens is the bank robbers decide that they want to split up. And Nathan then is hoping that the one car that he chooses is the one car that has uh, Shelly in it, or Sherry in it, and he picks wrong. It ends up being the one that has Ben in it. So Nathan chases after this car, gets to a point where Ben gets his car just kind of stuck in this dead end. And so that then has Nathan going to Ben and his car, realizing that Sherry isn't in the car. So he's like, well, I chose wrong. So Nathan is just desperately looking at Ben, and it's like, hey man, like, all I want to know is where Sherry is. Like, I'll let you go, and what I just want to know where this girl is. And so Ben won't give him the answer. So that then leads this kind of rustling for this gun, which then leads them in this kitchen. So within this kitchen, this is where we understand like why this character is to be built to be like the right guy uh, for the wrong time, probably. So Nathan goes on to grab all these pots that are like boiling hot, and like it burns the Ben guy, and so we find that the gun is to be tossed in this steamer, and so after all of this like fighting, and Nathan is chucking this knife, and it just smacks onto the bulletproof vest. And so Nathan's like, "Well, what a waste that was." So all this leads up to Nathan fighting this guy, and the guy is very strong, and so eventually Nathan is forced to then dip his hand into this steamer to get this gun so he can fire this gun to kill this guy, which forces him to realize, well, I'm not going to get in from any information from this guy. So Nathan goes on to then take a picture of this tattoo and send this tattoo to Roscoe, and hopes that Roscoe is going to be able to find the tattoo dealer, or the tattooist. Is that a word? The guy who did the tattoo, and trying to figure out what this guy's name was, and or maybe where he lives, or some kind of information somehow. So so Nathan ends up asking Roscoe for this information, and Roscoe's like, well, why do you need any of this? What's going on? And so Nathan eventually goes on and explains to Roscoe what's going on, and Roscoe wants nothing to do with it because he thinks that he may go into prison for just kind of being at any point connected to what's going on with Nathan, and that Nathan has gone on to technically murder someone. So Roscoe eventually does go on and help Nathan out with this information, and so that then leads Nathan to go to this tattoo parlor. So uh we also have these two detectives, but again, most of what the detectives do like are kind of like moot. Like really they're just kind of like falling behind of what Nathan has gone on and done, and they're like trying to figure out where Nathan is going to end up next, and they also think that Nathan is somehow tied to this bank robbery, as if it's like an inside guy kind of job, which it's not. So they're on the chase to get to Nathan, and like one of the detectives even think that like, well, hey, like if we know who this guy is, like can we easily just figure out like that he has this guy's phone number, or that Nathan still has this guy's cell phone number or cell phone. And so they go on to find out who this guy is, and then they call Nathan, and then they're like trying to figure out whether he's involved in this or not. And so now this becomes that Nathan needs to clear his name while also trying to get to Sherry. So like that becomes like the usefulness of the cop scenes. But again, like I would rather just kind of really want to fast track all of that, because a lot of the cop stuff is really a waste of time in this movie. So Nathan goes on again finding this tattoo parlor, And I'm trying to find if there's a uh, guy's name here for the tattooist. Not really seeing it anywhere on here. So, oh, Zeno. So we get to the tattoo parlor, and so Nathan comes up with this because he's already had like tattoos all over his body, anyways. So Nathan is to go on and say that he wants this chest tattoo, but really he's there to talk to this Zeno guy about the guy who had this tattoo. And so the Zeno guy is like, "Oh yeah, that's Ben." And so the more and more that they talk, and Nathan is trying to figure out this guy's full name, and like the further and further that this guy starts to talk about, like, well, oh yeah, like, you know him from like the military, right? And Nathan's like, oh yeah, yeah, sure. And so the more and more that they talk, Zeno realizes that Nathan doesn't actually really know this guy. And so then uh because Nathan is just trying to get this guy's last name. And so Zeno starts to understand that this guy is kind of lying to him. And so he gets this knife out, and Nathan puts a gun to this guy's head and it's like, hey man, like, you need to give me this information of this guy's full name, and I'll kind of leave you alone. And so this ends up leading Nathan to now fight this big massive guy. And like when Nathan is to try to go on and start to like punch this guy, Zeno's like, come on, man. And so Nathan is finding everything at his disposal to either stab into this guy, or in desperation, as Zeno is to just kind of toss Nathan into this glass. uh, Nathan just ends up realizing that he can take this glass and shove it into his hand, and then like fight this guy with with glass pieces in his hands because he can't feel anything anyways. And then also like he's already wrecked his uh, one hand anyways with him steaming his hand before. So Nathan then goes on to then be on top of this guy, and he's tattooing this guy's neck, torturing him to get this information, and so he gets the last name. So Nathan then goes on to call for this guy's name, and I think he ends up calling him from like another bank or something, and that ends up giving him the address for Ben's home. So Nathan goes to this one location, and so now we have to go in to more of the bank robber's story. So come to find out, I believe the guy who is Andre is brothers with Ben. So because it seems they own this kind of Clarkson Sons business. So Andre is with Simon, and they're talking it out because they're like, well, hey, like, where is Ben? Like, why is he taking so long? Maybe he got caught. No, like, it doesn't seem like on the radio, like, it doesn't sound like he got caught. So, Andre, because they have a police scanner. So, Andre eventually goes to Ben's home also to hope that Ben is actually just hanging out there. So, Simon is to go to Sherry and is to try to comfort her, and even ends up giving her some candy, and it ends up having us realize that Simon actually knows Sherry because this is her, or this is his sister, and so he knows her favorite candy. And so but Sherry was talking about, hey, you weren't supposed to kill the manager. And so Sherry was to have been the inside person, and Sherry is working alongside her brother. And we're thinking at this point, I'm like, oh man, like everything that Nathan is doing is just a waste of time. But then again, also, uh, Sherry, it seems like, yeah, she was working with them, but eventually we'll come to find that she is to have like a change of heart about what's kind of going on, and like she will go on and will want to help Nathan by the end of this story, and really go and fight her own brother in doing so. So back to Nathan. So Nathan makes his way to Ben's house, and bizarrely we come to find that Ben, or whoever he lives with, seems to have been this prepper. What I mean by prepper is these people tend to like booby trap their house, and like there's a reference of Home Alone going on in here because of how well uh, far booby trapped this whole entire house is, to where when Nathan goes into a room, like he might fall into a little uh, thing of tripwire, or he may go on and like step on to a certain piece of floor and get a crossbow in the leg, or so many things that kind of happen with Nathan when being in this weird, goofy trap of a house. And so Nathan ends up kind of bumping into this tripwire, and he ends up getting a mace in the back of his back, and he ends up having to like pull it out of his back. So Nathan goes on to make his way through this trap of a house, and so he goes on and he like takes this cart and he throws it down this hallway to hope that there is no other traps that exist there. So Nathan finally goes on to fall on a rope trap, and so he ends up calling Roscoe because he's local, and he asks him desperately if he can kind of set him free here. So Roscoe does go on and do so, and says that he's 10 minutes out. So by the time that Nathan is hanging upside down, we then have Andre, who ends up coming into Ben's home and finds Nathan kind of hanging upside down. And so Andre is asking Nathan, it's like, well, hey, how do you know my brother? And Nathan just kind of plays off. He's like, oh, I'm just some thief that coincidentally was breaking into this guy's house, and I guess I broke into the wrong house. Oh, wow. So we have Andre that cuts Nathan free, but then ties him to this chair and starts to torture him, which will be pointless, but Nathan is to consistently squeal in agony to pretend that all of this stuff actually does hurt, because Nathan is hoping that he can just buy time at this point, because again he's waiting for his friend that is going to take 10 minutes to get there. So by the escalation of all of this torture, and Andre stating that uh, that he's going to make this slow, Nathan's like, yeah, make it slow. Yeah, go ahead. Take as long as you want. So Andre is getting a phone call, and it's from Simon telling him that his brother is dead, and the person who would kill them was a guy in a suit. And so Andre's like, well, hey, the guy that I have with me right now is in a suit, so two and two together. So Andre wants to go on and pull the eyes out of Nathan and put him in a jar. And so by that time, finally, when Andre's going to possibly accomplish this, Roscoe comes in and saves the day, and he hits Andre with this thing, this pipe or whatever, and knocks him down. And we're thinking, oh, okay, well Andre is taken care of. And then Andre gets back up and starts to just kind of beat up like Roscoe. So Roscoe goes into this place and starts fighting like bear mace and all these kinds of other things to uh, find a way to incapacitate Andre. And what eventually ends up happening, because Nathan has this arrow in his leg, is that he goes on and Nathan wraps his legs around Andre, and then he takes the arrow and shoves the arrow through Andre's head, uh, in between, uh, with Andre's head being in between Nathan's legs. And so Roscoe ends up freeing Nathan uh, from him having his arrow and caught in between the head and the arrow and whatever. So, and then bandages him up. So we still then have to go on and have Nathan try and save his damsel in distress. But the problem is that the cops have found out where Ben lives, and now Nathan has to figure out some way for him to still be able to get to rescue Sherry. So what happens is Roscoe ends up getting on this scooter and driving off, and the cops just start to chase after him. And while that's going on, Nathan ends up kind of running off to get to uh, this business that Simon is just kind of hiding out in. So Nathan gets into the Clarkson Sons business. And so I think at this point, like when Simon is talking to Sherry, Sherry is kind of having second thoughts about all of this. So Simon, it seems, is kind of getting very upset with his sister. And so by that time, we have Nathan that kind of comes from behind Simon and is kind of threatening him with this gun. And so Simon then puts his gun down because he's kind of threatening his sister. And so what eventually ends up happening with this is that eventually Simon is to get the gun back, and by the time he gets the gun back, we then have him get shot in the chest and he goes down. And he ends up getting shot in the chest by the cops that arrive at this place because they figure out like where they're supposed to go next. Because Roscoe is to go on and explain to the cops where Nathan is heading. So we assume that everything is all well and good, and that that the bad guy is done and we're all wrapped up here. Well, come to find out, no. So one of the detectives can train the guy detective. He ends up getting shot and he ends up getting killed. And then Simon goes on the spree of continuing to shoot the detectives, and then he shoots the ambulance driver, and he ends up taking the ambulance because originally, like, Nathan was going to get hauled away on this ambulance, because of course he has just heavily been beaten up, and Simon was going to crush Nathan's head, and so Nathan is in this ambulance just kind of as a passenger, and Simon eventually realizes that Nathan is in this ambulance. And he's like, "Oh man, like you're still here," kind of thing. So at this point, we have Sherry who is to want to free herself from her cuffs and then run off to try and chase after her to hope that she can help Nathan or catch up after Simon. And that forces the other detective that's still alive to want to go with Sherry. Uh, and so we have Nathan that is to go on and be in the back of the ambulance. He frees himself from uh, from his bed uh, in the ambulance, whatever the bed is called in there, and Simon is of course going on and talking uh, with Nathan, and like the way that Nathan talks to Simon here is kind of similar to how he talked to his the other guy Andre, where uh where Nathan was making up so much crap to tell Andre that his brother said, and Andre was like, "Yeah, that's nothing of what my brother said." Whereas Nathan is now telling Simon, it's like, well, yeah, like I just want to tell you that, uh, like I want to tell your sister this and this and this and this, and then Simon was like, well, wait a minute, what did you say? And so Nathan is just trying to again buy more time for him to figure out a weapon that he can use, and he ends up finding a defibrillator. So he ends up cranking up the defibrillator to the highest it can possibly be. So uh, Nathan ends up saying like, "Well, hey, I'm sorry if I'm not really clear," and then he defibs Simon, and then Simon ends up crashing the ambulance. So also there was a scene where Nathan had gotten shot, and he went to Earl's place, and he ended up kind of pulling the bullet out, and like Earl was telling Nathan like, "Well, hey man, you should go to the hospital," and Nathan's like, "Well, there's not enough time." I had completely forgotten about that whole scene. But yeah, so and also Nathan gave Earl enough money to be able to afford his bills. So, but anything, let's kind of wrap up here. So, and I remember that, and I say that scene because uh, Nathan was to look and find that there was like uh, these things that he could take and have them shoot into his body so he can get a rush of adrenaline. And at some point, Nathan goes on and finds these same kind of things again because he, of course, is near the ambulance. And so Sherry ends up arriving and and like thinking that this detective is going to go along with her, but like the detective is too far bleeding out. So Sherry just tells Roscoe like, "Hey man, like you better go on and you better get her to a hospital." And then Sherry runs off with this gun. So by this time we find out that Nathan is like his one arm is just hanging on by a thread, and like there's like a bone popping out in his arm. It's freaking gross. So uh we then have Sherry with this gun firing off at Simon. Simon's running off. So eventually this lends to us realizing that like Sherry is going to lose this gun, and Simon and Sherry are going to have this fight. And Simon's telling Sherry, it's like, oh, you've always ever fought dirty. And so while Simon and Sherry are fighting, Nathan is just kind of getting back the courage. And again, he's gonna find one of these adrenaline shots so he can pop that into his body. And so Nathan ends up finding Simon, and he ends up taking his own bone from his arm and using it to stab into Simon through his like through his chin and killing him. And then after that, it's like, okay, everything is all to be resolved. But come to find out, even though Nathan was to try to do the right thing and was to be a good guy here, we come to find out that also that good guys don't win, that he still like broke into a guy's house and he still did this and that and this and that crime, so he's gonna have to spend like a year of time in jail. So but if anything also like he uh when he awoke in the hospital after all this happened, so he is like head to toe like mummified um because of all the injuries that he's had. But yeah, so like the detective comes in and tells Nathan like, oh yeah, like you're going to jail, you're going to spend some time, but it's only going to be like X number of months. So a year later, after Nathan is to be out of prison, we have Nathan that's kind of playing a games with Roscoe again, and come to find out he has something that he needs to do, which is to meet up with his girlfriend Sherry at the prison because she's still uh, serving time for what she did. She was kind of an accomplice to a number of crimes, and then she'll have to spend a number of months in prison. So, but uh, but Nathan is to celebrate their 1 year anniversary of them going on their first date at prison. And so Nathan tries to kiss Sherry and does all these things that he's not supposed to. That he shows her his tattoo, and like the security officer is like, "Hey man, what are you doing over there?" And this and that. So really, like uh, by the tail end of this, like really all we're to really see is that these two are in prison, or that the two are in prison, that Sherry's in prison, and that they had this like nice little cute little moment to just kind of wrap up this film, and like that is to of course be the ending of this film. But with that said, I'm going to get the heck out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody.